Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works on the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weiry.
Also joining us, eating ice cream, is Evgeni.
Hi, my name's Argent, and I have a Hoyd card.
That is not how I imagined Hoyd at all.
It's the Era 1 informant Hoyd, who is a short, bald man with a pipe.
Oh, from House War? That one?
Yeah,
okay.
Well, so the card is from House War, the image is somewhat canonical.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you can get from Brennan if you meet him. It's not included in the base game.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yep.
Oh, neat. Mm-hmm. And also we got Marvin.
Hi, I'm Paleo.
It's definitely not really late for you right now, right?
Oh, it's fine. It's only 10 p.m.
Oh, okay. That's not so bad.
It's
EU time frames. That's weird. All right. And I'm Chaos. And what we're going to do more WoBs from 2020. We're moving along. We talked about a lot of villains last time. We also talked about the Dawnshard prologue last time. So hopefully this should go a little faster. So I don't know. We're cruising along. And honestly, we're not that far away from Rhythm of War, guys. We're not that far. Really. I'm just like counting the amount of podcasts. It's not that many until then.
Mm-hmm. So this is another Word of Brennan from the live streams.
Yep.
And I'm glad we cut the last episode where we did. And that means I get to read this one.
I know you're very excited about it.
It's my favorite one.
As is Grace.
Whole document.
Grace is extremely excited about this one.
Questioner asks, can Skybreakers vow to follow a code of rules some might consider outlawish, like the pirate code? Are they obliged to adhere to changes in the law after their vow? Brandon, yes and yes.
Yes.
What you're running into with what's happening right now, the Skybreakers are under the thumb of someone who has a much more rigid interpretation of what they should do than is necessary for the order.
Cough nail.
Cough nail cough.
Yep.
And so you could totally be a Skybreaker who is not of this group, and this group would not look kindly on something like the pirate code necessarily. Though the pirate code kind of works for them because it's in international waters. So even with the current crop of Skybreakers, you could probably argue the pirate code, and they'd probably be okay with it. But you could have even less codes that's like, I'm going to follow the code of the criminal underground, and I'm going to follow the mafia code. Current crop of Skybreakers, that would not fly with them. But in the order in general, and the way that high-spread work and things like that, you would totally be okay. Which is kind of dangerous, yes. But you would have to follow the code as the code changes. So that could get you into trouble also. Skybreakers, they've got an interesting way of going about all this. Hopefully all the orders do. That's one of my goals with them.
I just find it hilarious that you could have like Captain Jack Sparrow Skybreaker. That is excellent. That is quality. Make some fan art.
So there's a character in Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Specifically Jack Sparrow's father.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who is the keeper of the code or something, freaks out whenever anybody implies breaking the code.
Yeah, he's the real one who's that pirate code Skybreaker.
See, what I was imagining is a kid that's like 8 years old and is in that phase of their life where they're so fascinated by pirates that they attract a high spren and they become a Skybreaker.
So I guess that's...
And also they have to convince the high spren that, no, I can be a pirate.
Follow the codes.
Can you change which laws you swear to if you change your mind?
I think if you swear it, I think that's the thing, and I think the high spren would not be okay with you changing what you swear to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I guess the fifth ideal, you become the law, so...
Mm-hmm.
So maybe at that stage you can, but not before, I don't think.
Maybe there's some formalized way to also just go back on your oath, but then you have to redo it all, so you also lose all the benefits. So you can't just say, okay, now I'm following that code, but you actually have to. I don't think that's likely, but like we know that we don't know necessarily, but you could effectively break the bond to an extent, maybe, and then, but that wouldn't be good for you or this friend.
Break my bond with this friend. Attract a different high friend. Swear those ideals. I don't think they would like that very much. I don't think the high friend would like it.
Mm-hmm. But I guess this is kind of how Seth was able to swear to Dalinar. Because like Dalinar is not a code of laws. He's a person.
Right, yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, he's not a code of laws.
But there are provisions in like the oath system of the Skybreakers for this happening. Like the third ideal, the third ideal is about swearing to something external, right? That's because I think the second one was to uphold the law above all else, which doesn't specify a specific code. But then with the third one, you say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to follow. So it's fine.
Yeah, so it's like that's kind of explains all of this. It's just current crop of Skybreakers are picky on what are valid targets for the third ideal.
Yeah. I feel like we had another WoB about high spren being kind of little wonky. We'll talk a little more about Skybreakers.
Cool. Let's move on. Roger asks, as I understand it, red is a sign of corruption in the Cosmere. I just reread The Emperor's Soul, and it mentions wisps of red smoke when Shay tests soul stamps.
Shay.
To some of you, that is shy.
Yes.
Does this
normal
mean
human beings, it is shy.
Everyone except Brandon. I don't
know. Does this mean she's corrupting Galtona's soul? And Brandon, surprisingly, says, yes, that is what that means.
Hey.
Corruption doesn't have to have the negative connotation, right? Basically, it means an outside influence is changing the spiritual nature of the soul. And yeah, that's exactly what's happening right there. Now, I would call that a pretty good thing, but like all of those things where she's playing with someone's soul and changing it and changing their past and things like that, this is, by Cosmere definition, corrupting someone's soul. That is expressly what that is.
That does make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, it's really interesting, right? It doesn't have to be a negative thing.
Corruption's not so bad. This trail guy.
He knows sometimes it's okay.
Yeah. She's not corrupting Galtona's soul. She's enlightening his soul.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. Cool.
Settle down. I'm going to read a long one now. That
important one.
So David, and long and important one, yeah. So David asks, how intertwined are the two halves of the Stormlight Archive? Will you need to read the first half of to know what's happening in the second half? If you read the first half, will you need to read the second half to get that sense that the story has to come to an end? To which Brandon says, I've never done something like this before. They are less intertwined than, say, Mistborn 2 and 3, but maybe equivalently intertwined to Mistborn, as Mistborn is intertwined to Mistborn 2 and 3, if that makes sense. It depends. Maybe even a little less than that, actually. I think that you are going to want to view them as one big series of 10 books, and we are going to come to an ending, and there will be some very satisfying things about it. But it's definitely going to be a promise there's more to come. I've never done anything quite like this, less final than Mistborn 3, certainly. So I don't know. I didn't think anyone would read the Wax and Wayne books without reading the first ones, but I get emails all the time from people who started with those because those are the ones that appeal to them. I think you could start with book 6 of the Stormlight Archive and it wouldn't feel strange. Okay. And I think it would be harder to stop with book 5 if that makes sense, of those two options. But it's all going to depend on your personal preference and things like that. So it's an excellent question. Plus, I haven't written the 5th book yet, and that's going to inform a lot. these things change and morph as I'm going. Every one of them does. So who knows? I can explain better after book 5 is done. Wow.
So
It does make sense to me.
yeah, because back half is going to have a different core cast,
Mhm.
right? Than our like Kaladin, Shallan, Dalinar. Like we'll probably still see them if they survive, right? But like we're gonna have Lift be a main character, Renarin be a main character. Like our set of protagonists will be different. So less final than Hero of Ages. That makes sense. It's not gonna solve everything, but Brandon says there's gonna be very satisfying things. You know, if there is a satisfying ending, I can sort of see how book 6, you know, I mean, it really depends, right? On what the specifics are, right? But
Yeah.
I could imagine it's maybe a little bit hard of a term, but it's a sort of a soft reset at that point. Like
if there was something like that,
Yeah.
right?
maybe, and so it's of course beneficial to know what's happened before, but you don't technically need to know to understand the second arc.
It's
Like,
probably like less bad than if you started on book 5.
Yeah.
Right? Like book 5, terrible starting place. Book 6, probably strictly better, right? Like
Mhm.
I almost wonder if it's similar to like long running like TV shows where like every like couple of seasons, like there's a season that's like, okay, like this is a good starting point. It's like it begins like new story arcs. Is like, and like all the stuff that happened can just be treated as backstory.
and
like, with Doctor Who, like pretty much anytime the Doctor regenerates, it's a good starting point. You don't necessarily need to have seen everything before it, even if that informs stuff that is happening in the future.
yeah.
I've been trying to think of a book series where something like this happens.
Yeah.
And so I thought of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, which is not a great example, I don't think.
No.
What is probably closer to this is, and I don't know how popular this is to people, but Raymond Feast's Rift War saga or series, which is
I'm aware of it. Yeah.
which is a series of like 30 plus books actually.
That many.
But it's like a dozen series of 3 to 4 books, and every series in the sequence is like a generation forward or half a generation forward. And so you have some of the old characters. So for example, jumping from the first to the second, you have a prince who is now, or prince as in like heir to the throne type of thing. He's now a king. And you still see him there. It's still the same person, a little bit changed, right? Because time has passed, whatever. Those are characters that the new cast of characters interact with every now and then. They visit them, they ask for advice, they talk about things that have happened in the past, but also the new cast of characters have their own problems to solve and their own like character arcs and story arcs to go on. And so I wonder if it's going to be something like that. So maybe let's say Kaladin is playing the role of somebody like Deft right now. So he is kind of the older person. He is in some ways experienced. He's seen a lot of things, but he's not like, he's no longer jumping to the forefront of the action. He's taking a back role where he's more of a general, less of a soldier, I guess. And like other Radiants that we see come to their power in the first arc might be shifting into that kind of role.
Yeah, it's like I'm expecting,
or they might be dead.
If Kaladin reaches the 5th oath, like he's going to do that in the front 5. Like he's not.
I agree.
Still going to. He's going to be like, I don't know how much of a foundational character arc he's going to have.
Yeah.
If he is in the back half, he's not going to change much.
Yeah.
He's become
Unless
the
he
person
dies.
he needs to be.
And
I guess you can sort of compare it with like what we see of Vesher in Stormlight, because he's sort of a mostly complete character at this point. In his story, we haven't seen all of that development yet, but I feel like that might be a role that Kaladin might take. That's just character-wise.
That's sort of a tricky one because, like, he was originally conceived as a Stormlight character.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like that maybe. Although more than a
of course. But like we won't see we don't see much character development happening anymore with Wesher because sort of Warbreaker and things are his prequel story more or less.
Right.
So
we might see more of him. He might be more important.
I wouldn't be surprised if like he has more in Stormlight.
Mm-hmm.
He has to have a role. Like Brandon didn't conceive Vasher as
Warbreaker,
a grumpy Ardent who like has 2 chapters in 3 books or whatever. Like he has a role to play in
of course.
Yeah, it's like those books exist, so like Brandon could get Vasher to the point where he could do the cool things he needs to do in Stormlight.
Yeah.
The other benefit to the back half is we're going to get like a 10-15 year time jump, right? So when you start book 6, presumably the world will have changed, right? And so you will have to learn that backstory on whatever happened, right? In a pretty big time jump, right? So in a sense, long-term readers will want to know what happened, but a newer reader, it's like, oh, I can kind of figure out what happened, in the last while, because he has to explain it there, right?
It's because like we know Rhythm War, or like there's a time skip between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, so it's like it's going to be like that, but more.
Way bigger, yeah. So
times 10,
and it also makes sense that if you start if it's not a complete thing at the end of book 5, but there are some things complete that you would obviously want to continue after book 5.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to be like alternatively in a long running TV show, where it's like they start out with like a plan and like this is the big bad, and then they eventually defeat the big bad, and they get picked up for another season. So it's like they kind of have to scramble for like. So that
there was the
now
bigger
a new
better.
Big bad that is even worse than the old one, and like how
sent the old big
it's
bad
still
here,
one series, but like it's
I got flashbacks to Supernatural.
That is the one I was thinking of.
18 seasons of bigger and better.
Oof.
Or whatever it is.
It's 15 seasons. Probably 16 now because of Corona, but
hopefully
I don't know.
Better that Brandon has these planned, so that should be a lot nicer. So it should hopefully feel that things are very connected. So capitals.
Yeah.
All right. This one is from the Dark One Q&A, which if you pre-ordered Dark One, you can see that, but otherwise you can't. But Alexis there asks, how did the Knights Radiant treat their transgender members, assuming that that some underwent a physical transformation once they gained access to Stormlight? Brandon, in the past, you will find the Radiants being way more progressive than the societies at large. They would treat the transgender person as a gender that they see themselves as being. Great.
Good.
Yep.
Cool.
That makes a lot of sense because probably a lot of the societies in the Shadow Days or whatever, probably aren't that progressive and stuff, but the Radiants, they get a continuity of culture with the Spren Bond and Eurytheru and stuff, right?
Yeah.
That survives,
I guess
definitely.
The fact that they are dealing with Spren so much also helps them have another perspective on gender, because Spren are do not have the only 2 genders but 4, and so it gives them a bit of a different perspective as well that informs their culture.
Yeah. And like the core of the Knights Radiant is in almost all cases hey, be nice.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be the kind of people who are empathetic to others, and they would listen to others, and they would protect others, and then they would trap the souls of others in a gem and lobotomize them.
Hey, look, part of Mishram had to go. You know, this is a problem. There were unintended side effects. They didn't intend for that to happen.
Yes, it is in the unintended part of that.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, listener wob. Love listener wobs.
I'm excited.
So this next question is also from the Dark Ones Q&A, and it is actually a question that I have long held. So I'm glad someone finally asked it.
This is good.
Oh.
Which is, what form is a listener or singer, because that's the name of the species, at birth? Singers are technically dull form, but they kind of view it as child form. And it is vibrant and alive in a way that dull form later on is not. It dulls as you get older. The singers, I think I have them hitting maturity right now at 7 or 8. I don't know if that works with the continuity. I just mentioned it in the latest draft, so Peter and Karen will have to make sure that that's in continuity.
This is in July, by the way.
Yeah. I don't bring it up a lot because it would be really weird to people. But I think in these Venli sequences in the flashbacks, I think Venli right now is probably 14 because singers mature, like their 8 is our 16. They just mature faster. But I don't bring it up because it's one of those things, like the fact that I don't often mention that Roshar is 20-hour days, or I stay away from the 5-day week, just because it really kicks people out. You've got to be really careful about how you write things like that. I'm like, Venli is 14. You'd be like, what? Venli does not feel 14.
Right.
Well, she's not 14. She's 14 for a singer. And some of these flashback sequences, she's 10. But she's going to read like she's 16 or 17 because that's what she would be in maturity level for a human. It gets very sticky in these sorts of things. The answer is they are dull form, but dull form acts differently with children.
Super interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wonder if this quote unquote child form, right? If there's some like, if they're like, I for some reason I keep thinking of Nalthis.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if as singer children grow older and mature, they kind of like consume maybe extra innate investiture or whatever. Like, I don't necessarily believe this, but maybe the reason they mature faster is because they're born with additional innate investiture, and then like they consume that to mature
like
faster.
Gem heart or something. Because like if they're born with this form, they don't have to like get a spren in their gem heart, right? Like, so it's kind of interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless there's a weird thing where the mother captures a spare spren or something like that.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's like, but I don't know now, about that either. I'm thinking that dull form don't have spren.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
That seems likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you go out in the storm to transform and you fail,
your dull form.
Then
you come back as dull form, yeah.
They actually talk about like when Wendy's and Eshonai's mother has one of her sort of periods, she talks about how it's the day of their first transformation and how they take their first spren, I think. So that's pretty indicative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we would have to read up what exactly she says, but yeah.
Yeah, there's probably some kind of like coming of age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
cultural
that's exactly
thing.
What.
Yeah, I don't think it's a biological. Okay, well, you have orbited the star this many thousand times, or not. The planet has rotated this many thousand times.
Rosharn's celestial physics is a little weird, but not quite that weird.
And therefore, you now have 1 day to capture a spren. Otherwise, you're no. It's got to be like
it's probably connected with the maturity, right? Like as like your if you become dull form, like now that you can have these new forms, right? Then it's like, oh, right,
once you start dulling, but not quite until you reach dull form. Otherwise, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what I was about to say. Like, they don't see a reason sort of to spawn the sprint yet. When they're still not quite as dull, and but it also makes me want to just how long the lifespan of the singers is.
Yeah.
Like, do they just mature faster and then sort of plateau and get quite old, or do they also die earlier?
Maybe a little earlier.
And I don't know if we know that. Like,
I don't think we know.
I think it could go either way.
Yeah.
I think it can go either way.
I kind of just want to know how old their mother is. Right now.
Super interesting. I was talking with David about this when this WoB came out, and I do think it's probably a good idea to not like constantly mention those things, because readers will just get kicked out of a story. I kind of compare it to like in Way of Kings Prime, they talked about 10 sets, right? And I was saying, look, when you have a large learning curve, you just don't want to kick people out of the story for like dumb reasons. You want to make sure it's intentional, that no, you really need this information. You don't need to invent words, and you don't need to constantly say, oh, next week, right? Yeah, it's 5 days later, because like our human brains are like, what? No, that's a week and a half isn't 8 days, right? Like, it's just weird, right? Something like that. Cool.
Yep. What do we have next? Uh-oh. There's an asterisk.
There's an asterisk. The asterisk returns. 2020 WoBs, asterisk returns.
Well, we abandon the singers to their dull form fate and return to the live streams and the return of the asterisk.
Yep.
Billy asks, does allomancy have cognitive and spiritual manifestations as well as physical? And Brandon says yes. Yes, it does, but asterisk. A little asterisk.
I'm trying to... What does this question even mean?
Yeah.
I think it's more like how Dalinar has spiritual adhesion.
Okay. Sure, okay.
But, and like iron and steel can push on metals. Like it, so like, is there like a way to spiritually push on metals?
Well, the metals have spiritual integrity, so sure, why not? You push and pull on the integrities of metals. It makes sense.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
We do know that emotional allomancy does work on the cognitive aspect.
Yeah. Like Atium has to operate on the spiritual aspect of things. So
right.
Yeah. I guess the maybe not the real question, but a follow-up question would be, would the same metal have like different manifestations, different forms? Like, can you have Atium do something that is purely physical? Maybe Atium is not the best example in this.
Stabby.
But like that's problematic. Also, already seems to show that like probably not as much. Like there's not strong stuff there.
Yeah, I think the asterisk is like as a system as a whole, like it touches all three realms, but it's not like each specific ability touches multiple things.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Yep. Like the physical metals are physical, the mental metals are cognitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the enhancement ones are weird.
Have spiritual steel.
What does aluminum do? We don't know. How does it work?
Okay, so there was a San Diego Comic-Con sort of virtual panel that Brandon did a bit ago, and we also have a Rhythm of War reading from there, so go check it out if you want.
Yep.
And so and people could submit questions, of course, and one of the questions was, what kind of spren is Oathbringer the Shardblade? And then we have Brandon just going off in complete autopilot mode and saying like, Oathbringer is not technically a spren, why call these things honor blades, blah, blah, blah. So
he just confused those two.
yeah, he is for some reason assumed at that point that he was talking about honor blades and how they are not technically Spren, but the Spren who took sort of the model that the honor Spren are and built after that model. And while the honor blades don't have a Spren, or you can't really think of them as Spren, you may call them a sliver of honor, maybe. Yes.
Why'd you say sliver?
Oh, no, Brandon, why? Stop it.
Definitely not capital sliver.
I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe, probably. Yeah, okay. The blade still probably, or you could say that it consists of tenavestium, and if you want to call it that. But yeah, so Brandon then explains that he did just go on autopilot there and finally actually answers the question. And he says that Oathbringer, he clarifies Oathbringer is not an honor blade. And it was a Stonewards blade a long time ago with the corresponding Spren.
Yep.
Watching that stream, or VOD rather, live with all the other people in chat, and just like people exploded.
It's like, what?
Brandon says.
It's like, no, it's just obviously.
Did Brandon really say that? No, Brandon was being dumb.
And also, I like on the stream where he corrected himself, like he also flubbed like Shardblade and Honor Blade again, but he kind of it smoothed it over. It was fine. It was just really funny to me.
Yeah.
But makes sense. Honor Blade's God Metal. Yeah, it's a physical manifestation of a Shard's investiture. Not that interesting. And Stoneward Blade for Oathbringer. Cool. This next one, Shard blades cut organic and inorganic material differently. How would they interact with an animated construct like an awakened straw man? What about a lifeless? Very interesting, because lifeless are gray. Like, what happens when you cut things with a shard blade? Brandon, so I walk kind of a fine line here. Something that's animated as a construct like an awakened straw man is probably going to block the shard blade to some extent, as powerful investiture would. A lifeless is probably just going to act like it was a living being. Sorry. Huh.
So I know that Brandon says block to some extent. I think what he really means is resist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
As investiture does.
Yeah. Invested metal mines would resist to an extent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's probably that same thing, which is interesting. I wonder if lifeless, the standard lifeless that we see on Malthus these days are the one breath lifeless. I'm almost wondering if those inefficient commands, using more breath, because there's more than one way to make a lifeless. And Vasher implied that there are some advantages to doing it that way. So I wonder if those with more breath would do the same thing.
I think you would have to have a lot of breath for that to start having an effect.
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting.
I think they behave fundamentally different. Awakened objects and lifeless, I think, behave fundamentally different. With the object, it is... this is difficult to put in words or even thoughts, but with the lifeless, it is you essentially have an inanimate object, and the investiture is almost like I imagine it as the investiture filling. Oh god, I was going to say a vessel, but that's such a charged word, especially on Malthus.
Yep.
A container, right? And then moving that around. And so if you are slashing an awakened object, you are literally pushing your blade against investiture. Whereas with lifeless, the way I'm trying to think of them right now is the investiture becomes one with the body, the same way that a person's cognitive aspect and spiritual aspect, their soul and their mind are one with them. And so it's not a human-shaped container that is being animated by investiture. It is something that is akin to a living thing.
And
it's sort of probably somebody who holds a lot of Stormlight.
That's just what I was thinking.
He's still as easy to
Yeah.
It still behaves. The Shardblade still behaves the same. It doesn't resist really because it's sort of part of them, the investiture,
Shardblades
and
are weird.
not. It's
And it's like we
it's a
see
few
Shardblades cut Spren in
Yeah.
Oathbringer,
Yeah.
and like they're literally investiture.
Yeah.
So
That is also weird.
but regarding this WoB, like, what is the divide, or is there a dividing line between what's considered, or what distinguishes living beings from inanimate objects that are awakened? In like, is there?
I think it's
Could you replicate it in an awakening?
with lifeless. I think that is the replication.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like something like Nightblood. If you could create something like Nightblood, but without using quite as much breath or investiture, if hypothetically that was possible, do you get
I
closer
think the
to
problem with something like Nightblood is that it was never a living thing,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's important here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
True.
The lifeless were lifed,
Yeah.
lifeful.
Yeah. They were alive.
Yeah, it's hard using Nightblood as a precedent for
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
It's true.
It is very interesting where that line is and how Shardblades
Mhm.
know the difference when cutting. It's like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Just it does.
This question has been on my list TM for like 4 years, I want to say.
I mean, it's probably like some spiritual mumbo jumbo like baked in
Yeah.
to what Shardblades are cutting. It's like, oh, stone
Yeah.
doesn't think of itself as organic, so it cuts it or something like that,
Mhm.
right?
Huffpuff perception identity investiture
Yep. No, it's all that. Yeah.
connection.
Anything Brandon needs to rationalize, we got that. We got it covered.
Well, in the spiritual realm.
This next one is from Storm Lightning.
Awesome.
How
Oh,
the
that's a
heck
familiar name.
is Nail's Spren still with him? Is his Spren as wacky as he is, or is it dead and he still carries it around? Brandon, Nail's Spren is alive. The High Spren, I would say wacky is probably a decent term for them. I would blame some of how Nail is acting more on the High Spren. Obviously, it's partially being a herald and all the things he's gone through, but they're all on board for this. So read that as you will. Well, all. The ones that are making Radiance of the Order are on board for it. You'll get to see Seth interact with his just a little bit. There's not a ton of Seth in this book, but you've got a few chapters, at least one for sure. And he gets to interact with his Spren, and you'll get a better picture of the High Spren from that moment.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, the High Spren were the ones who they weren't a part of the Recreants, right? So
Yeah, it is really, really interesting to consider the events with Neo and the Skybreakers and the High Spren during the Recreants, and like who convinced whom of what and how things have changed in the past, 4 millennia, 2 millennia, I guess.
But I also sort of wonder with this is like how you would blame some of how Nail is acting more on the High Spren. And we know that Nail is a Skybreaker of the 5th ID or 5th Oath. So, and we sort of know or speculate, I'm not sure if you know, but that the spirit webs sort of merge more and more the further you progress. Or maybe it's just a theory, I can't remember, but maybe it's something that sort of your thoughts also become more in line with your Spren somehow. So you're sort of, because you're so closely bonded, you affect each other much more, and so you take on some of the views of your Spren.
I'm taking this more as like the High Spren are telling him things that are leading him down like a path of thinking. Rather than mind melding.
But it's just sort of made me wonder whether that might be an effect of...
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Because it's like, the way I'm reading it, it's like the High Spren in general, not his in specific.
Yeah. Does make me wonder, like, soul stuff with a Spren bond when you're a herald and just how all that works.
Yeah, it's got to be like a weird mishmash of stuff, right? Because like if you're a herald, your soul is just full of
Honor.
stuff. yeah. I mean,
Honor's invested.
Nail says honor has suffused them.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
But like the High Spren are probably reinforcing all of like the negative herald madness stuff, because it's like, oh, you are acting more like us because you're insane, but they think that's a good thing.
Yay! That's not terrifying at all.
Weird High Spren things and weird herald things.
Lots.
Let's go to the next question. The next question asks, did the Sunmaker see visions of the Stormfather too? The Sunmaker being one of the ancestors in the Alethi line who conquered like half the world.
Yep.
And did the hierarchy as well.
Yep.
Brent says he did not. The Sunmaker was basically my version of an Alexander the Great, or maybe a better example would be Genghis Khan, or somebody like that. One of the great warlords in the past, he did not see visions from the Stormfather.
That makes sense. That's nice to have a confirmation about that. Because you could definitely interpret uniting the world as conquering all of it, right? Like, I think that is a thing that is possible.
And the fact that he ended the hierarchy where people were claiming wisdom from the Almighty and visions from the Almighty.
Yep.
So moving on to the next question. The question asks, shard blades burn out the eyes of the victims, and dead eyes have their eyes scratched out in Shadesmar. Is the connection here purely thematic, or are there actual realmatic mechanics behind it? To which Brendan says, there are, but they are pretty slight. I would lean more on the idea of the thematic, this more being a Rosha thing, with the eye color, the eyes being scratched out, shard blades burning out the eyes. There are some realmatic things behind this, but mostly it's me trying to connect the theme in this magic system. As you might know, maybe not, shard blades originally did cut flesh. I wrote the entire prologue with Seth and them cutting flesh, and oh boy, was that bloody. These are books about war, but man, it was just so gory that I'm like, I'm gonna back off on this. Let's have it burn out the eyes instead. And I like it way better that way. And of course, Brendan would like it better that way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like with lightsabers, you never really seem to see all the blood, but it's like, oh, it cauterizes it. But yeah, when you have blades that can cut through anything, if it didn't do this, it would be really bloody all the time. So that's probably for the best.
No.
It's very funny to me. Just Zeph going through the palace, and there's like a pile of limbs behind him.
Yeah. So this is better and more creepy, honestly, to have eyes literally burn out. Like there's something for gore, but like eyes literally being like on fire and stuff. It's like, ooh, that's creepy for a very different reason, you know? So some theme with eyes, but it's slight. That makes sense.
I guess if Brendan had gone with that, the prologue would have to be named something like red clothing, once white.
Boo.
Excellent.
Oof.
I do wish he hadn't said that there was like a small realmatic connection. Like, just say it's purely thematic, Brandon. Like, don't make me think about weird eyes window to the soul type of stuff and how it works in the Cosmere.
Well, the thing is, he uses realmatics to justify what he wants to be themes. Like, that's the thing, right? So it's like, any theme he wants is like, all right, let's make realmatics and the mechanics do that thing, right? Like, that's what it is.
There's a role for that.
Yeah. So this next one is one that will not surprise you to be from Argent. The heralds seem to be insane in the ways of their divine attributes, at least somewhat. Is this because they're heralds? As cognitive shadows, they're subject to people's perception, like how Spren are. And it says, that's a very astute question, and yes, that is influencing them quite a bit. I'm doing something here with the heralds. Like, I want the heralds' madnesses, as we call them, to be magical diseases. And the contrast of something like Kaladin's depression, which I'm trying to treat very real world. I'm trying to treat them as these things that couldn't exist in our world. They're fantastical mental diseases, like we have fantastic physical diseases in Elantris. So I did make them thematic, and I would say part of the reason for that is people's perception of them and their mental state reacting against that. and that should be a theme among all the heralds. Cool. There you
No
go.
matter what
It is
any
really-
singular herald says, they're all crazy.
They're all crazy. I still remember the word
Definitely.
of Brandon where Brandon's like, do not trust anything a herald says ever. He's like, seriously, no, don't do it.
Because they're always like, oh, I'm sane and Ishar is sane.
Yeah, Ishar, he's known to be
Yeah, yeah,
nice. Yeah. He seems really sane as Tezim. He seems nice. What's up?
One thing I find really interesting about this word of Brandon is that at the very end, Brandon seems to imply that at least one of the reasons for these madnesses is because the heralds' minds are pushing back against kind of the collective perception
Oh,
of the
yeah,
people
okay.
who are
Sure.
thinking
Yep.
things
Mhm.
about them, right?
Sure.
Which feels like it's a thing in the Cosmere, except obviously not in exactly this form. But I'm reminded of soul stamping and
Mhm.
how when I'll go with you on this one. When Shai is testing stamps on Galtona, like Galtona's soul, I guess, but maybe also his mind is like fighting against like forced investiture, essentially.
Mhm.
And so, and I'm also reminded of the Lord Ruler, whose real age was constantly straining against his like de-aging atium compounding, right?
I can see that connection a little bit. I think this is almost more interesting because it's about like people's perception, right? And people's perception influences Spren. And I guess the heralds are kind of like Spren, right? But they're also human, and so they're resisting that. And so that almost makes me wonder about Spren itself, if they can, right?
I think it's like the Spren don't have this problem because like they fully acknowledge themselves as like, we are ideas that have come alive. Like being affected by people's thoughts, like that's part of their nature. Whereas like
Sure.
the heralds were people, it's like a person does not want to be affected by what
Don't like
other
this.
people think of
Yeah,
them.
right.
Like,
Ooh, ew. I'm just imagining high school or something. It's like, ooh, yeah, no, that is not good. Not good.
yeah.
And what has me interested with this swap as well is implications for Kelsier, probably, because he's also a cognitive
Oh,
shadow
yeah.
and
True.
Mhm.
will be affected by all the religions he's inevitably created or sort of spawned.
That's a good point.
And
Yeah.
Good point.
It is.
Yeah.
It is interesting to consider survivorism as not only a religion that is. It's a funny vicious cycle, right? Kelsier spawns a religion, which is survivorism, and then as the beliefs of the religion change and evolve, and as the religion itself gathers like popularity, these things are circling back and potentially changing Kelsier.
Hopefully for the better. Because
Maybe.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
Kelsier, look, in Secret History, I got the distinct impression that Kelsier was about to become better.
Well, I mean, that's definitely a Raffo because I imagine Lost Metal will have some of that, right?
Mhm.
Maybe. Like with that Bands of Mourning ending.
Kelsier lived past the point where he should have died or else become a villain.
Yep. That's basically what it's. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this next one, if Vasher and Shashara had awakened a non-weapon in exactly the same way as Nightblood, say a shield, would the object exhibit the same properties as Nightblood? Brennan responded, so if you said destroy evil to a shield, no, it wouldn't be exactly the same. The command is the most important part of all of this, but the shape, how the weapon perceives itself, how you perceive it is all going to play into this. They're playing with some real dangerous stuff when they made Nightblood, and it didn't go as intended.
Any of you imagining like an evil Nightblood Captain America shield? It's pretty great. But that makes sense. Interesting that it's how the weapon perceives itself, because like it does have a cognitive aspect, right? As humans use a sword, right? So that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, because like a shield would probably be more focused on protection.
Yep.
Like destroying, like as a means to protect,
Right.
rather than Nightblood, who was a sword.
Blood's just happy to kill anything.
I wonder if it's theoretically possible, right? That if you did the whole thing with the shield, right, and let's say if you're using the shield to like bash somebody, maybe it would behave like a normal shield. But if you are blocking an attack, then it would like vaporize the weapon that it's blocking because it goes, this thing that's hitting me, this is evil. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah. And I wonder whether like awakening a shield with the command destroy evil would even I think it would require more breath at least, because it sort of it's not matching. A sword destroys. It's matching its nature, but a shield is not naturally destroying stuff. So it would be a lot harder to awaken it to do.
I
that.
don't.
Maybe.
I think
know if I agree with that, because it's like when it comes to shape, it's the closer something is to the shape of the awakener, it becomes more efficient. But that doesn't matter in terms of command. Like being suited for the shape of the command, like you have to be able to envision the thing you're awakening doing that command. Like as long as you can do that, the shape doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's probably I see what you're saying, Ian. That's probably the difficult part. Yeah, destroy with the shield, right? You know, like the visualization and stuff is probably trickier. And I would definitely assume that the personality would be different. Hard to say how.
Looking forward to the sequel to Warbreaker, where we see a shield awakened with the command "Protect against evil."
Well, I was just thinking of just protect me, you know, like what would that do, right? Lot of interesting things you could do.
Twist your arm to actually block an attack.
Makes me think of the Rick and Morty episode where like Rick tells the car to protect Summer, and it takes increasingly outrageous methods of just killing everybody around her who tries to approach the car. So
it almost reminds me of Doctor Strange's cloak, you know. It's not metal, but it's like it's kind of an awakened thing.
I mean, that's basically what Vesha does. Like when he grabs things and he climbs the wall.
Except the cloak of levitation has a mind of its own, so it's closer to Nightblood than.
Sure.
But yeah, it's totally like that.
Oh, I'm excited about this next one.
Next one. Let's talk about everyone's favorite planet in story.
I like this question. This question's very interesting to me.
Did the ones above seek out First of the Sun specifically, or did they stumble upon it mostly by chance? And the answer reads as follows. So here's the thing. You can see in Shadesmar where planets with intelligent life on them are. So on one hand, you can stumble across them. But on the other hand, we're going to know which planets, which systems, and where the intelligent life is. Specifically, First of the Sun has this weird thing. It's got kind of a shard pool, but no shard in attendance. Getting there, they knew it was there, but couldn't get through. And so visited it in the physical realm intentionally. So they didn't stumble upon it, but it was originally stumbled upon in Shadesmar, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense that they would do that.
Yeah. And technically, based off of the Arcanum Unbounded essay, like they could get there. They could go through the perpendicularity, but that perpendicularity lets out on Death Island and no one ever came back.
Yep. So that makes a ton of sense that you would go scouting in the cognitive realm and then send your like FTL ships. It's like, I don't know how you'd know where it is in the physical, but whatever. Who knows?
I mean, at this point,
probably.
They probably have like some understanding of how the cognitive maps to the physical.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe you could even
and they have a ballpark to like start searching.
Maybe you could even sort of place something in the cognitive there, and in the physical have a compass sort of thing that points at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a beacon is more likely.
Yeah.
Because like with the cognitive realm being very two-dimensional,
It's weird.
When you because like let's say you were on Roshar, right? And there is a popular theory at this point, it may have even been confirmed, I don't remember why, that the expanses around the Shadesmar, the subastral of Shadesmar, correspond to other world
Well,
like
they
the
are.
expansive
Yeah.
vapors.
Yeah, they are.
It was
Yeah.
revealed
Yeah.
like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so if you're going from the Rosharan Subastral to, let's say, the Nalthian one, you know that you need to go, this direction. And if you walk far enough, you get there. But like in the physical realm, the two planets are not, I mean, they're on the same plane because they have to be, right? Because that's how planes work. But they're not necessarily...
That sort of plane. Yes. I thought you were talking about the galactic plane. And I'm like, we don't know that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. But they don't have to be. I guess I can't explain that
the
well.
2D to 3D is weird.
Yeah. You
That's
lose
all.
a dimension.
Yeah, but it is interesting. But I love the idea that's like, hey, just search out other planets that have life. What's up? Easy.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Brandon someone did ask Brandon on why everybody is so interested in the AVR, and he did mention something about them being useful for navigation, which doesn't help them find
The AVR.
the AVR, though there are AVR off-world before
With Maze.
because of Rays. So how that all works, who knows?
The AVR's like, whoa, it flies in the perpendicularity, and Ray's just like, yeah, I got him. Went through the perpendicularity. I'm in the cognitive. What's up? I don't know.
It's also where the chowder stand is, that
Yeah, of course.
Dusk gets his chowder. Yeah.
Yep. Does he actually get chowder?
Yeah.
He
Well,
has
we have a
had
lot of-
Herdazian food and hates it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
I hate that.
Interesting.
So we have another one from the Comic-Con. Another question where the question asks, we know that Soulcaster savants exist and Radiants are protected by the Nahal bond, but not immune to becoming one. Can all searches cause becoming a savant? Brandon says, yes, they could. The questioner then asks if that's still the same question. Can other fabrials, such as the one that takes away pain and the one that offers regrowth, cause some sort of savanthood? And to which Brandon says, those I'll explain the distinction rhythm of war. I get deep into the fabrial science. There's a big distinction between those fabrials and soulcasters that will become manifest. Let's say that what happens to soulcasters is more likely to cause savanthood and the side effects. It sort of would fit because transformation also transforms you more than other searches maybe do.
True, perhaps. Like,
I don't like how this questioner lumps the pain reel and
Pain reels and the regrowth.
Yeah, that's
those
not-
are different. Like,
That's probably why
Yeah.
Brandon's going off and's like, those are different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess we'll
Looking
find
forward
out more
to
with more power.
spicy fabrial science.
yeah.
Yep.
I guess, yeah. Moving on.
Yep. All right. Next one. Questioner, you've mentioned before that Odium is scared of Harmony. Is it only because of the raw power of the two shards, or is he scared of what Harmony represents, meaning the possibility of merging two shards? Was he aware that this was possible? Brandon, he on one level was aware, but it was more of an awareness of this as a possibility. It actually happening is part of what has him scared. It's the idea of the two merging shards both being more powerful and finding a harmony, which Sazed is actually having way more trouble doing than Odium realizes. Those two things really have Odium scared, because partially this means he has to find a way to destroy or split Harmony without taking up a second shard himself, because Odium knows that if he takes up a second shard, terrible things will happen. And so he doesn't want to do that. Terrible things as he views them. So he's got to find a way to split this apart or somehow otherwise defeat. Now, the more he learns about Sazed's actual state, the less afraid he'll probably be, but that's an advantage that Sazed has right now. That makes sense.
Neat.
Yeah, Yeah, so we did know that Odium doesn't want to take up other shards because he really likes his shard, right? He doesn't want himself to change to be shaped by another shard, so that's why he's destroying the others. So
it will literally corrupt him.
yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this next one, we are back to the live streams.
Yep.
And this is after a question where Isaac and Steve Argyle, who's doing a lot of artwork for The Way of Kings Leatherbound and, well, the Kickstarter, where they decided like which Cosmere magic would they want. And they both picked light weaving.
Yep.
Because they're artists.
Yep.
So do you think anything in the future would change their minds on light weaving being the magic system they would want to have? Brendan, no. I mean, there will be other magics, but we have hit all of the core Cosmere magics except for the Aethers. And I don't think Aethers will be enough to tempt them away. Possibly. That would be my guess. I mean, there will be other little magics because I always have things like that I'm writing. But there's only one major magic system that hasn't been used extensively on screen.
Presumably the Aethers.
Yes.
And that is implied to be the Aethers,
Yep.
yeah.
So kite magic is not going to be major.
Core Cosmere magic? No, probably not.
Dang it. There goes my hope for the kite shard.
That's very interesting. Almost a little disappointing to me because we have so many more shards. But I mean, I think even with other shards, like abilities, illusion magic, kind of like light weaving, right? And that sort of thing. So probably not a whole bunch of different abilities left. I guess that kind of makes sense.
And I mean, for a lot of shards, we already know that they are not necessarily invested anywhere, like on a planet. So they wouldn't necessarily even. They would have. They might have a magic system, but we just won't get to see it because they never manifested.
And like the biggest and flashiest magic systems we have are where there's more than one shard on the planet.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
and like we've kind of hit all of those. Like most of the rest are probably alone.
I would say so. Yeah. Maybe Aether.
I
might have two. I don't know.
I would expect most of the shards to follow the agreement that they thought they were going to follow.
Yeah. Cool.
The next question is, somebody was asking about Horn-Eater White, and Brandon says, Horn-Eaters are capable of drinking Horn-Eater White, which is the super, super potent alcohol on Roshar. They actually are human singer hybrids like the Herdazians, but in a different line. And they have a different physiology. And they actually are not 100% human and are capable of eating and ingesting things that would kill a person. And Isaac Stewart, who was on the stream, asked, can singers also do that? Can they also eat and drink things that would kill humans? And Brandon says, yes, singers can drink the Horn-Eater White.
Cool. That's kind of neat.
Which I think is really funny. The fact that there's an alcohol that can literally kill humans, but the Unkalaki are just like, yeah, whatever.
Unless you have Stormblight, easy peasy. But who knows what that was doing to Shallan's stomach.
Shallan, you have a real problem with alcohol.
Whale can deal with that. So. Okay, we have another question. This one is from B-Wall, and they ask, does the shard on Roshar have a bead representing it in Shadesmar? And they don't mean the vessel, assuming that the vessel is even considered separate. They are talking about the actual shard itself, to which Brennan answered, no, it does not. Good question. Which to me makes sense because like living things don't have a bead and they have these flames instead.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like the shards are primarily spiritual.
That as well. Yeah.
Their power is like suffusing all three realms, and so it just kind of doesn't make sense to talk about, right?
Yeah. And I guess the flames people see in Shadesmar, or the flames that are seen in Shadesmar, are just the minds of the physical beings, right?
Right, exactly.
It does
when
make
a
me
person
wonder,
dies, does that flame crystallize into a sphere that represents their corpse?
I don't. I think they just sort of snuff out.
Yeah, I think
where
they're just
we
snuffed
see
out.
flames going away, at least when they are in the Colina, when they
Right,
go to the Orc Gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
But
we
they
think
don't-
corpses get spheres?
Yeah, like I see what you're getting at, and it's really interesting because,
Yeah.
especially considering that there's the tradition of soul casting
Yeah, it was
the
about
bodies of like
That's
light-eyed
true.
officers.
Yeah.
So I guess
I
they
feel
have
like
to.
one has to.
Yeah.
No, but
Like it has to exist, but where does it come from?
Yeah. Maybe
Where do any of these spheres come from?
it just sort of exactly. They just manifest at some point, and like it doesn't actually have to be the flame that turns into it, because the corpse isn't quite there yet. Sort of, it doesn't. Like maybe it just pops up at some point.
I think
I
as
don't know.
soon as an object is created, a bead is formed, right? And like once we perceive,
As
once
soon-
humans perceive, like if we're building a chair,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's
Once
true.
we perceive it as a chair, then the bead is that was like a bead that is the
Mhm.
chair, right?
Yeah.
probably yes.
Like maybe there's a little bit of transition time is for like
Mm-hmm.
people to perceive it as such, but I would say that I don't think it would be that uncommon for beads to be created or destroyed just as people perceive them like all the time in the cognitive realm, right?
Yeah.
By that merit.
Like, I mean, that gets into what is considered a whole and things like that. But if it was the flame that turned into the sphere, you could also have that somebody is literally split in half, like they're killed by being split in half, sort of. And would they get 2 spheres, or would the corpse get 2 spheres, or and what effect would that have on the flame? So
I guess it
Yeah.
depend on people's perceptions of
Yeah,
everything.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
so like the flames are the actual like thinking, right, of
Mhm.
intelligent life, right? So I don't know. That's interesting. I would assume that
Well-
a bead manifests when you
Mhm.
become a corpse. That's what I would say.
Huh.
Beads
I
have to
don't-
be coming in and out all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. What I was thinking is, so in Secret History, when Kelsier is walking, I think on a river or a lake, he sees little flames under him,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like most of us assume are just fish.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's not about like sapience or sentience.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
just-
Something else.
Mhm.
Well, presumably, in that case, the more thinking a thing has, just the bigger the flame, right? In the cognitive.
Mhm.
And like a tree, is not moving, it's not doing very much. And so it'd maybe be a very tiny flame or something. I don't know. Something like that.
Mhm.
And an insect would have super tiny flames. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah.
And it'd just be really hard to see. Like you couldn't even see it if you're walking around. But maybe if you got like a magnifying glass and shades more, maybe you could see them. I don't know.
And I guess that also makes me think, like, Sleepless, what
Oh,
their
yeah,
flames look
jeez.
like. Would they have one per Kremling? And
Oh,
It's just
all
gonna
right.
be-
Moving
That is
on.
a good point to move on.
Yeah, definitely. All right, last one. We're done finally. B-Wall also asks, how long after Warbreaker does Way of Kings take place? I know you usually don't finalize timeline details until they are actually stated in book, but are you willing to say how far parts the books are in the current plans? Brandon, I have Warbreaker happening a few generations before right now. However, I'm very likely to move Elantris up in time, so it's a little in the air at the moment. So that's kind of interesting.
I guess it at least puts an end to, it's sort of, it doesn't put an end to it, but some people were saying that maybe Warbreaker was just happening 20 years or so before Stormlight, but a few generations says it's or earlier than that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
probably, unless he changes his mind again.
What's a generation?
Yeah.
Vasher's getting old.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? Because he's got about 300 years between the Man in War and the events of Warbreaker.
Mhm.
He was alive Did he come back during? No, he must have
Was it
returned a little before the.
Yeah.
a little
yeah,
before
that
the
was
Many War.
because there was the 5 scholars and they were chilling for
Yeah.
who knows how long. Really, it's not clear.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And then you have another few generations between Warbreaker and this.
Yeah.
So he's sitting in like 5, 6, 7, 800 years at least, something like that.
Ish, yeah. Definitely more over 400 for sure, I would say.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say necessarily over 500, but
Yeah.
400 plus.
Because it's one of the early touchstones we had was that Warbreaker takes place after Hero of Ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that does restrict like the upper bound of those several generations could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like how this question is like, I know how you don't usually finalize timeline titles, as if Brandon personally is finalizing it. It's like, Karen, maybe. But, you know, Karen probably has it in a timeline somewhere. But kind of interesting.
Mistress of Time.
Because, like, we kind of knew the vague order, but not, like, how far they were relative to each other. And, like, Elantris was way far back, but maybe with thinking about the Elantris sequels, he's like, nah, I gotta move it a little forward, right? That's what I would expect.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Cool! We are done with WoBs, so it's time for Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace, Tien,
Tom,
Raise.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw. Welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game where you send 5 clues in a character to WTCC at 17shard.com. We read the clues aloud, and these guys need to guess who's that Cosmere character. This first one is sent by Hishashi Coleman. And clue 1, this character has access to an invested art.
Bayon.
It is not Bayon.
I want to say it now in case this is a trick question.
Okay, go for it.
Because I think having access is a ambiguous phrase, and it does not distinguish out of like whether they have personal access or have access to someone who can do stuff for them.
Okay. What you thinking?
I'm just gonna go ahead and say Navani.
Hey, it's not Navani.
I would hate you so much if you got a Navani
That would be
question.
really funny. That would be really funny.
I would hate you.
Yep.
I'm gonna go Hrathen, who
It's not Hrathen.
has powers and has access to people with powers.
Clue 2, this character is described as impulsive.
Lift.
It's not Lift. Good guess.
I will stubbornly refuse to guess Stormlight characters and go with Dilaf.
It's not Dilaf. All right.
Kenton.
Wait, let's.
Kenton?
Yeah,
No, it's not Kenton.
Is he impulsive?
Clue 3. This character speaks with Hoyd. A useful clue. Kind of.
Well, that
Kelsier.
makes it
He's not Kelsier.
difficult not to guess Stormlight ones.
Yeah.
It's true.
Siri?
It is Siri. Nice.
Hey.
The next clue is this character is friends with a heretic, and this character never uses their invested art. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess if you have a breath, I guess you are awakening when you give it to others. I guess.
And like technically everyone in the Cosmere has access to awakening as long as they get breath.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and like she could awaken a lifeless.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
has that potential.
She can do that. That is true.
And are the Royal Locks an invested art?
Yeah.
Maybe that also
No.
counts.
No, I would not say so.
I
I
wouldn't
think
say
that-
so, yeah.
I must
No.
assume that this is awakening.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. Very similar clue 1, but slightly phrased different. This character is able to use investiture.
Oh.
Technically, I'm going to guess Navani again. 'Cause she can use investiture and fabrials. So
It's,
It is not Navani.
What do you mean again? You didn't guess her the first time around?
I'm going to
The
make
traitor.
Navani be guessed again.
Syl.
It's not Syl.
I'm gonna go with Kaladin.
It's not Kaladin. Clue 2. This character is female.
Malada.
It is not Mulata. I like that, though.
What a good
I was
guess.
thinking her for the last question, but then it got
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, with speaking the Hoid. Yeah.
I'm gonna guess Marasi.
It is not Marasi.
Karate.
Ugh, screw you. No, it's not her. Aeonic. Boo. All right.
Aeonic.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm never going to do that. Clue 3. This character is
3.
dead.
Give me the exact wording of the first one again.
Yeah.
This character is able to use investiture.
What does it mean to be dead in the Cosmere?
Yeah. And like, as of the current books, she's dead. It's
I wouldn't overthink that.
yeah, okay.
I don't remember if she dies though.
It
We're
is a
going to
character you
assume
would
that-
agree is dead.
Okay, it's unambiguous.
It is not ambiguous in any way.
I'm gonna guess Sean Elariel.
It's not Sean Alariel. That's a good guess, though.
And
That fits. That fits.
And I'm going to guess Win because she's the next dead
Who?
Win.
Oh, no, it's not Vin.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Ulida?
No, it's not Ulada, but I like that. Clue 4. This character sacrificed herself for another.
Is it Blushweaver?
Is not Blushweaver.
It's a good
Okay,
guess.
so the clues are: can use investiture,
Mhm.
is dead, sacrifice themselves,
And female.
And female. Okay, that was the one.
Yeah.
That was the one that
Yeah.
I imprinted that like, oh, this character is female without remembering that was one of
Right,
the
yeah,
clues.
yeah.
Otherwise, my guess would have been Lightsong.
Hey.
Tindwill.
It is not Tindwill. I really like that guess.
Oh, nice.
It's a good guess.
How is it not Syl? What the hell?
So it's not dead.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that's a valid point.
It's
I
a pretty
accept
valid point. She's pretty alive. I don't know, man.
Okay. I think that does contradict my theory.
Yeah, I think so. It's not Syl.
No, she doesn't have investiture. Oh, is it just me?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or in that case, Maya.
It's not Maya. Clue 5. This character has something special named after her.
Mare.
It is Mare. There you go. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mare was Kelsier's wife.
She was a tin eye, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And sacrificed herself. So
Yeah.
there you go. That was
I
a
am
solid one, I think.
Yeah.
very
that's-
pleased by both of these.
Yes.
Unambiguously dead, right?
Yeah.
Just definitely dead. I was like, no. Everyone will agree. She is dead.
Yeah.
Clue,
I was
clue number
thinking-
1.
A Lonoe of the Weiry,
Mm,
the leader.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hmm.
We're done. We're done with WoBs. Woo! We did it. We're caught up, and
There are
there
no more
won't be new ones for a while. Well, I mean, I guess there'll be more live streams, so we'll do some eventually, but it will not be soon. I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these all have been non-spoiler live streams technically, so you'll
yeah,
probably get a few more spicy ones in the spoiler-filled ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
some spoilery ones
well,
after
the-
Rhythm of War, maybe.
The San Diego
Mhm.
Comic-Con was spoiled.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
Yep.
was, yeah.
Cool. Well, you can find us on 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. You can join us in Discord. It's super fun. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube. You can leave us a review on iTunes. If you like our stuff, you can support us on Patreon. Links below. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Farewell.
Bye.
Caw.